Good afternoon. I think this shows us that stability is a key concept. And we had this morning our session of the Global Financial Regulator Summit, 4 hours of open discussion, and we touched upon many topics. Usually AI is considered from the industry point of view, how to increase competition in terms of capital market. But as a Regulator Summit, we took a slightly different angle. We look at what's going on within the regulators, how they can adapt AI, what it means in terms of their own functions, to what extent it increases their efficiency, the speediness, and so on. So we look at that, and we look at it as a first step in a very concrete manner, looking at use case. Who is doing what happens? Instead of starting about high-level speech, very concrete. So I'm very pleased to have my fellow panelists. Maybe I'll start with George from the Cyprus Commission, chairman. Maybe you could tell us what you've seen in your own jurisdiction as use cases, and then what kind of lesson we could draw from this first experience.
Sure. Thank you, Philippe, for the question. So, first of all, let me say that as an organization, we understand the importance of the technology, and we're embracing the technology. The markets have becoming very complex. There's a lot of technological development in the markets, so the use of technology such as AI is imperative. So we have been experimenting with technology. So one use of AI that we have applied at SciSec, it's a cloud-based tool which is powered by AI to allow us to integrate lots of volumes of data coming from the ESMA hubs under specific European regulations. So there's a lot of volumes of data that in the past we did not have the capacity or the capability to analyze. And now with the technology, we're able to integrate all those data, and not just integrate. The technology would allow us to do predictive analytics, discover patterns, anomalies in the data, detections of any potential risks. It incorporates NLP capabilities. So there's a lot that we can achieve through this technology. And this is part of a broader picture, or a broader project, I should say, that we have, which we call it a data-driven supervision, where basically the data coming from all of these regulations, which until now have not been analyzed to the extent that they should be analyzed, will guide us in terms of our supervisory practices, in terms of the risk categorization of entities, and so on. So this is one use that has been very successful and positive for us until now.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. This is really useful. How to use data and how to analyze data is a very efficient tool. So maybe to Luxembourg from the Securities Commission, Claude Marx.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon to you all. So before I actually go into the use cases, I want to highlight 2 difficulties that we faced, and I think we are not alone in facing those difficulties. Before generative AI tools became widely available, we tried to build our own solutions with research projects with the university, and this took an awful lot of time, too much time for us. After generative AI tools were widely available, we were facing confidentiality and data protection issues that were also referred to by the previous panel, actually. And we have overcome those problems with a totally air-gapped, disconnected sovereign cloud environment on which the high-performance, latest Google AI tools can be used. And so we can now use AI in a very safe manner. Having said this, we have two sorts of use cases in our authority. The first series is to deal with very large legal documents. Luxembourg is one of the leading fund industries in the world, and we have 3,300 funds live with hundreds of pages of prospectus each. And you can see that we should employ university graduates to review all this documentation. So we can automate this. Secondly, of course, data analytics and data management. Reporting these days is very large and is getting larger and larger. And in order to be able to deal with the vast amount of data, we use AI. Those are just two external use cases. I could add to that authorization process, not only reviewing large documents, but also dealing with lots of fit and proper type of documents where this is also useful. Then we have internal use cases ranging from minute-taking in numerous meetings that we have as regulators, internal and external, but also dealing with the internal processes. We have embarked a few years ago on lean management implementation in the authority, just like in a private company. And we can make this lean management process much more efficient by plugging AI onto the lean management process. So these are just a few examples.
Thank you. Then the FRA, Tarek Ibrahim.
Sure.
What kind of use case you can tell us?
Sure. Thank you very much, Philippe. Let me share with you a little bit. I come from the Financial Regulatory Authority in Egypt, who's the regulator for the non-banking financial services. But I'm be talking more about all the different use cases that we talked about and discussed from the different jurisdictions. And it was actually quite intriguing to see that there is a variety of different use cases that covers the spectrum all the way from the generation of the jurisdictions and the regulations all the way, or the legislations, to the licensing process, to the digital reporting, to the analysis of that, all the way to the enforcement. So whether it was a variety of different European jurisdictions as well as UK, Asia, there were really a lot of different use cases. But the lessons learned to us, or to me in particular, was the fact that each jurisdiction would have its own sense of figuring out what is the real value proposition based on their capabilities and the competencies that they currently have and what they want to make up to. So it's while there are a lot of different solutions that the AI and efficiencies that the AI can cover for the life cycle of what a regulator can position, the value on each regulator will be different. And hence, the importance of the continuous collaboration, and we welcome this opportunity for us to exchange experiences and reach conclusions and shorten the distance and the efforts in order to reach a cohesive framework for regulating AI.
Okay, thank you very much. So then, Emmanuel Giovanakis, what about the FSRA use cases? I think we are kind of leading on authorization.
Well, we've got a number of use cases that we've been working on. Firstly, I should mention the authorization process. So we're using artificial intelligence to help us analyze applications as they come in. And when I say analyze applications, so we receive a lot of different documents in relation to different aspects of an authorization process to meet threshold conditions which a regulator applies. So, for example, fitness and propriety, financials, structure, processes, policies, systems and controls that you're going to implement. So those come in a number of different formats. So the idea is to get the AI to help our authorization officers to distill what the key risks are and key issues are within those documents and what may be missing in those documents, and to be able to assist the authorization officer in being able to process the applications quite quickly. Another key aspect that we've been working on, we call it the Reg Buddy. We took our legislation a few years ago and we digitised that legislation. So by digitising it, we then tried to use an AI large language model to help us, in essence, take a business model or business activity that someone proposes to do. So say they want to do advising and arranging or managing assets or collective investments, and put that into the system. And then the idea is that the system will assist the firm in being able to analyse the full suite of regulations and rules and guidance and be able to give, say, a compliance officer a full distillation of what's required for them to focus on for their particular activities, which we believe will help the community. So that's more of a what we call a RegTech solution rather than a subtech solution. Another key piece of AI technology that we've been working on that we're fairly happy with is translation models. So being able to use AI to very quickly help with regard to translation from Arabic, for example, to English. So we're looking at AI from a number of different aspects. We're also looking at it from a supervision perspective, so from a compliance perspective. But we do that because we have obviously some internal resources and skill sets, but we also work with academia. For example, we've been working with the MBZ University for AI in relation to some of these tools. So we don't just work in isolation. Obviously, there are challenges with regard to some of these things, but we believe that technology generally, but AI specifically, is part of our regulatory toolkit going forward into the future. Without it, we'll be left behind. I mean, industry is constantly moving forward and can see the benefits in AI, and so do we. So we'll work in partnership with industry to not only understand it, but also be able to supervise properly in the future.
Thank you. And this is very convincing. In fact, well, we see that there are many use cases and vast opportunities, but I think that you mentioned challenges. And of course, well, we cannot look at that with blind eyes. There are risks behind that. And the question next is to see how we can mitigate the risk in terms of governance, in terms of data protection, investor protection, and so on. There are risks. So maybe we could start again a round of around this question. How do you, what kind of risk you see and how you mitigate them, briefly speaking?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Please, George, again.
Some of the risks that we encounter, I think, are similar to the risks that the industry is experiencing as well. For example, the explainability of the particular model that you're using, any algorithmic biases that can be part of the model. The model depends on the data quality, so the quality of the data is not there, then there is a model risk. Data privacy and security, over-reliance on technology. So some of these are types of risks that you encounter in the AI use for the industry, but also for regulators. And on top of that, I should mention that there needs to also, regulators, we need to develop the digital skills of the organizations. It's the technology is moving in such a rapid pace that it's difficult to keep up to. So there has to be ongoing training of our employees, of our officers, to be able to follow the new technologies and apply them in an efficient manner. And we're doing that. I mean, we're constantly sending our people, whether it's in events locally, internationally, academies, in order to be educated on the new technologies. And the second thing I should mention, basically, it's that you need, as an organization, to embrace this change. You have to have a digital transformation mindset, and it has to come from the top all the way down to all the people within the organization. And that's not easy, because there's always the resistance to any change, basically, right? So, and I should mention one last thing, that a lot of these things, to implement them, okay, you might have a third-party provider, but still, you need to have the human capital in-house to be able to apply the technologies. So they need time, they need resources. So a lot of times we're caught up in the day-to-day operations, and we don't have that time to focus on these new technologies.
Okay. Claude.
I'm not going to add or to repeat what George just said. The risks are the same. I think key here is training of staff. I think they need to get up to speed, up to a certain level in terms of prompt engineering, how to ask the right question to the system. We also are facing, obviously, shortage of talent in computer science, because that's not something typically a regulator is good at. So we need to have appropriate talent in terms of data analysts, data scientists, and also people just knowledgeable in the area. And then we need to make responsible use of the tools. For that, we have a committee overseeing the use cases and also the use that is being made. And we've also written a charter that all our staff have to obey, because as a regulator, of course, we cannot afford to fall foul of any rules or regulations, or indeed any ethical standards.
Tarek, anything to add?
Sure. Actually, it's interesting. We're through a training process right now, learning. So I only have a couple of other thoughts maybe I can add to, besides what was already mentioned, from data quality, privacy, transparency.
Of course. Yes.
Accountability and responsibility of the use of the AI system is a key issue. And maybe more in the lesser mature jurisdictions, the proliferation and the availability of the consumer and public AI systems, there is a need for a regulation to say whether the financial service institutions and how they can use that, as well as inside the regulator itself, because you can't help but people try to be efficient because the technology is readily available. So these 2 points, besides the intellectual property, ownership, accountability, these are things that needs to be taken into consideration from a risks perspective. So to address that, we see a need to quickly come out with a regulatory framework that decides what is allowed in the short term, and at the same time try to be flexible, because things are going to be continuously evolving.
Yes, thank you. You used the word regulation. So this morning we had a discussion around regulation. We're not sure there was consensus of new regulation. It may be very high level like the EU Act, but for the financial sector itself,
for the sector itself,
more about best practice,
yes,
guidance, and
sure,
so on. So we are quite flexible. But
sure,
Emmanuel, what is your view on how to mitigate the risk, and whether we should take some action as regulators? And
well, there's always this temptation to over-regulate or come out with extra regulations. I don't think from an AI perspective at this stage we're in that position. I think one thing from today that is really important is, rather than worrying about even more regulations where we already have technology regulations, we already have guidance in relation to that. We only just came out recently with a whole host of IT risk management guidelines which touch upon these aspects already. I think what's important and what came out of today is the cooperation and collaboration amongst regulators globally, not only on artificial intelligence, but on all key risks and challenges that we face as regulators. So today we had regulators from obviously the UAE, the GCC, but importantly also from Europe and Asia as well. So we as regulators need to work more closely together, not only to share experiences, but also to share in how we manage risk. And it's all about what are the risks in the utilisation of AI, but not losing sight as to the benefits at the same time. So I think through this regulatory cooperation and collaboration, whether it's bilateral or multilateral, through forums like today or through places like the BIS Innovation Hub, we continue to learn, and we will apply that learning in practice through engagement with the industry, but with each other. So that's my main learning from today.
Yes, it reflects what we heard this morning about, the key word was collaboration, international collaboration. We have to work all together, share experience, and then I would say progressive deployment, learning by doing somehow in a pragmatic manner. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Philippe.